waited a while, so. Well,
First off, I need to apologize. It's been a very hard couple days. Before I had been told that, my kids were always welcome. I spent Sunday night in the ER and almost all day yesterday going to doctors because I had been walking in Walmart and trying to keep my little girl from running off, and she tripped and fell and twisted her elbow. And so after spending nearly 24 hours dealing with that, to be told, keep your daughter from running around, at the same time I'm trying to keep my son from crying and, trying to do my best to keep the disruptions as minimal as I could. And if
we understand,
my
Jason.
thought was if I held her down and kept her from running, she'd start screaming, and that noise tends to be more of a disruption in this. And, I tried to keep her from bothering people, and I'm sorry to anyone, both for my actions being offensive and for my daughter bothering you, and tried to keep her from touching people's stuff, so I apologize for that. This is, however, the 6th meeting on this, and it's hard because a lot of times I feel like I'll come up and talk, and whoever's at this table gets to go and say things afterwards, and a lot of times they're false. I'm just going to address Commissioner. He said, I brought up victimless crimes, and that we have a problem where our justice system seems to focus more on victimless crimes than violent criminals. He said there's no such thing. That may be true if you take the perspective of a lot of the government that, well, anything we have a law, if you break it, then you're obviously, there's a victim, the government. But recently, Congress passed a law, ban lead paint from children's toys and clothing and different stuff. The consequence was it was so poorly thought and so poorly written that the law mandates $10,000, about a $10,000 test for any product. It doesn't have any exclusions for stay-at-home moms knitting clothes, people making their own blocks, secondhand toys being sold. All these are supposed to be submitted to testing that costs about $10,000. Oh, and guess what? One company in particular has an exception. They can do their own testing instead of sending it out to third-party testing. That happens to be Mattel, the largest toy company in America. I think maybe the world. So victimless crimes, yes, sir, there are victimless crimes, and I'm sorry if you're not aware of them, but you may need to do some more studying. Secondly, I want to address the fact that the commissioner mentioned civil courts. And
Jason, could you keep your comments towards council, please?
Sorry. The commissioner mentioned, civil courts, and we had one citizen mention about castle doctrine. One of the things that often happens is the fact that you can defend yourself and still find yourself at the hands of a legal lawsuit in a civil court system, and that's one of the things the castle doctrine is for. It would be nice to see a resolution saying, hey, let's give citizens more right to defend themselves without prosecution. We just had an incident in New York where a man killed 3 people using a shotgun. He actually did not respond until they started beating up his employees. And the question arose in New York whether to prosecute him because his 30-year-old shotgun was unregistered. More focus on the citizens than the criminals. And so I do want to just put that there. Next, I want to mention common sense gun control, common sense laws. It's baloney. We can look at other nations and see exactly where so-called common sense went. I'm a Boy Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout. I spent my youth going from Cub Scouts all the way to Eagle. You know what's one of the things I got to use? A knife. I was trained in how to use a knife, how to use it safely and properly, and how to use it as a tool that it is. Guess what? Children in Great Britain in the Boy Scouts will never get that anymore because they banned guns. But crime didn't go down. Actually, it's gone up in most cases, and they just had an incident where they discovered that their police departments were underreporting the violent crimes, trying to downplay the increase. So then they started focusing on knives because knifings have skyrocketed. You have knifings in other countries now that are killing dozens of people killed with a knife. So now they've deemed that even the little pen knives, the little tiny pocket knives, are so dangerous the Boy Scouts can no longer have those. common sense starts falling off the deep end because the laws that are being enacted aren't going to make a difference. So when it doesn't make a difference, and it doesn't make a difference, what happens is we keep saying we need more laws, more laws, more laws. Commissioner still was unable to say what that loophole was. I heard him mention about half a dozen times, well, it'll close the loophole. But not once could he say what the loophole was. He could not say what he can't do now under the straw purchase that he will be able to do now with a lost stolen ordinance, other than it seemed to be the fact that, well, maybe they wouldn't have to investigate as much because a person would already be guilty unless they could prove their innocence. But as I've discussed in prior meetings and sessions, there's no way to prove your innocence on this matter. Well, whether they believe you told the truth or not. How do you prove you didn't? How do I prove to you that I didn't know my gun was stolen? What evidence can I offer you to believe me if I've got tattoos, long hair, just don't look like somebody that you might consider a legitimate person? Maybe I'm decked out all in black because I'm in the goth culture, which happens to be actually a very peaceful culture if you get to know them. Most of the things that are attributed to that culture are not from there. And I want to second that. I'd like to see a resolution go out that would say, let's prosecute the criminals that use firearms. I'd like to ask the Commissioner if he could repeat that number of how many officers were killed in Pennsylvania this past year. That you had
18.
Okay, 18 in the previous year. Can you tell me how many of those officers were killed by people with prior violent criminal histories and prior weapons charges? Because I know I saw over the last year or so about 6 or 7 of the rap sheets I read on shooters of police officers all had prior violent criminal convictions and arrests, prior weapons violations. One guy had 10 counts of being stopped with a firearm as an illegal criminal. A prohibited person. This is something that even, all sides seem to say we agree. Violent predators, murderers, rapists, whatnot should not have guns. But we can't get them prosecuted unless they kill a cop. Does that mean Joe Average Citizen is less important? Because, we've got people with like 26 incidents of violent actions and we're still letting them out on the streets. So if we're going to do a resolution, I'd love to see a second one go forth requesting the judicial department to abstain from plea bargains on matters that involve firearms, if you guys would consider that as a council. Thank you. Once again, recorder, I apologize. Sorry.
Ain't the first time I've been cussed out.
Who else would like to speak? Sir?
Afternoon. Good evening,
Good evening, sir.
Okay. Benny Carter is my name, and I am a gun owner. Okay. I have several guns. Now, if one of my, first and foremost, I applaud City Council for taking a step to address this issue. And I respect Mr. Musso for his opinion also. And if one of my guns is stolen and a violent crime, say murder's committed, where do I stand? I'm not supposed to, I know, but this is a question I'm throwing out.
Commissioner, would you?
Oh, I believe that,
And I don't report it.
Okay, did you have knowledge of the gun being stolen? That is what we would